Hey guys, what's up? I'm Andy. I'm a self-taught software developer, and today I want to talk about remote work. So I'm a remote worker. I've actually been a remote worker for the last year and some change, I think a year and a half. And prior to that, I worked at a company in Chicago where I didn't work remotely. And I thought there's going to be a lot of people out there who watch my channel who are dying to hear about what remote work is like, because there's this perception out there of remote work being this sort of glorious thing where you get to work from home every day and, you know, just sit on the couch and do some coding. But obviously, I know most people don't think that's what it is, but I'll shed maybe some light on what working remotely looks like, and if it's for you, I'll maybe give you a better sense of things and maybe give you a better reality. First thing I would say is I love working remote. I work for a fantastic company called Centric. We do human resource management, I think is the best way you could probably put it. But it's a great company to work for. They treat you really well. The work is nice. It's a good team. We're building new features, and that plays a big role in why I enjoy my remote work now. But even with that being said, there are definitely advantages and certainly disadvantages to working remote. Let me just cover first the advantages. One is that I can work from anywhere in the world that I want to, as long as I show up from 9 to 5. Now, every company is different. The way my company works is I need to work 9 to 5 for my time. And if I'm working in, Mexico or Las Vegas or New York or Miami, it doesn't quite matter to them. They just want to make sure I show up to work on time, put in good work, and I'm available to answer questions if needed. And I've definitely taken advantage of that. I've traveled not as frequently the last year, but I should say, not as frequently as in the last 6 months, but the year prior, I was all over the place. I was traveling, it seemed like every other month, and it was funny because we have a meeting every morning, and I'd be sitting in a different place, and there was always sort of a running joke, like, oh, where are you at today? But I love to travel. I'm trying to save a little bit of money right now, and I'm doing a lot of YouTube videos, so I'm super busy, also trying to move out of my place right now. But remote work allowed me to travel, and it makes me as a person, I love to travel. And even if I go someplace for 7 days and I'm working 5 of those days, I still enjoy it because it gets me out of my grind, gets me out of my routine. I get to experience typically better weather because I live in Chicago and I travel during the winter. So I absolutely love that part about it. Another advantage for me personally is that I work from home. As you can see behind me here, I'd say lately it's been about 90% of the time, but I also have membership to a co-working space. I have my own private office that I got with a developer I know who I don't work with, but another developer I know, and we split the office. And I love it that there are days where I can just wake up and I don't feel like taking the 10-minute train ride over to the co-working space, or I can simply work from here. Like lately I've been on a healthy eating kick. I've been trying to lose a little bit of weight, so it's actually easier for me to stay home, cook a meal at lunch, and then get to work. Whereas if I go to my co-working space, I gotta cook a meal and then bring it with, so it's less of a pain. I can also walk my dog while I'm here. It's just, I don't know, I just love having that option available to me. If I need to bring somebody in to do work on the house, that's all a little bit easier. And I guess I'd say the third thing is really just saving time, and there's really not too much to it, but I save a lot of time by not having to go commute someplace to work, I guess outside my co-working space, right? But I don't have to spend time going to work every day and back, which I know for some people could be like a half hour one way. So, I save on that. I save time if I need to make lunch, I can live a healthier life. I think at the end of the day, it just comes down to freedom. I love having a freedom, and I still have to work again. I still have to work, so I don't have the freedom that I can just go do whatever I want, but it gives you a little bit more freedom than your traditional job where you actually have to show up for work. Now, obviously there are disadvantages to working remote as well, and they should definitely be considered before you start thinking that a remote job is just like this glorious fantasy world where you ride a unicorn around and kiss angels or something. I really don't know. But I think the first thing I would say as a drawback is the lack of sort of a social environment that you're probably used to with other jobs. What would be a job I could think of? I used to work at a Starbucks back in 2010, and one of the reasons I love working at that Starbucks is because I worked out in the suburbs of Chicago, and that specific Starbucks, we had a really tight-knit sort of family atmosphere amongst the baristas and amongst all the regular customers who would come in. And that was I still think of this to this day, like those people are people who I hold in high regard because I spent so much time with them, and it's sort of like a second family. And because you spent so much time in physical proximity to them. Whereas when you're working remote, no matter how cool or how much you like your fellow employees, they are not going to be in your physical proximity. And if that's something you're used to, or that's a big part of your social life, you're going to miss that, and that could be a big downside, especially for the social people out there. The second sort of disadvantage I would say about working remote would be, I think there are less opportunities for you as an employee at that company typically, because I mean, I think it's just sort of, if you think about it, if you're a remote worker, let's say your company's in San Francisco and I work in Chicago, you're not going to become a high-level manager. Typically, my company, I'm not going to be a high-level manager because of the fact I'm not amongst my other workers at the central location. Obviously, if you have a completely remote company, which is rare, but if you have a completely remote company, that may be different. But typically, when you work remote, you're not going to have those opportunities available to you. So if you really want to rise high in the sort of, company, you should definitely consider about whether you should work remote or whether you should actually go in and work at the physical location. It could change, just something you should consider. And then the last thing I would say, and this is sort of counterintuitive to what most people probably think about being a remote worker, is that you actually have to be more disciplined, in my opinion, at least more consciously disciplined than if you work at a physical location. Now, the reason I say that is because I still have to, despite the fact, okay, think about this, despite the fact that I can wake up in my sweatpants, go sit over here and start pounding it out at 9 o'clock in the morning, despite that fact, I still wake up at 7 a.m., I shower, I brush my teeth, I do all the things I'm going to do. In other words, I keep my routine, I keep a very disciplined routine, because if I don't keep that up, my discipline will slowly start to fade over time. And you can't just sort of think that it's going to be all, again, like I was saying before, like riding a unicorn around where you're just going to be waking up and working in your sweatpants. I even typically will dress up most days, meaning I don't look too shabby, because I don't want to ever start to not take the job seriously, because that's just a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for disaster for you personally, and obviously for your career prospects. You don't want to ever get to the point where they're worrying about whether you can be productive or not. You should always be a little bit paranoid if you're a remote worker about that, because I mean, you got to be working. Like they're letting you work remote, so you got to make sure you're working and being productive. Yeah, so that's really it. I'm sure I'm going to shoot another video on this in the future, but those are some quick thoughts I would have. I hope that answers any questions. If you do have any more questions about remote work or even just software development in general, please leave them in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you liked it. Is that right? Leave a like if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more content. And thank you so much for watching. I will see you later. Bye.